record this for perfect. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight. We are going through and sharing information at the second part of our webinar, and that is to talk about FAFSA completion. So we are thrilled to have you with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. As we get started, a couple of points. So I know lots of you have questions. Please hold on with your questions. My guess is we will get to most of them as we go through tonight. I'm assuming we're going to answer many, if not all, of your questions. And although my formal presentation is probably going to be about 50 minutes, at the end of that period, we will stay on for another half an hour or longer after to answer any questions we might have missed as we go through. So again, please bear with us as we go through. I want to acknowledge and thank the number of financial aid staff and volunteers who are behind the scenes answering our questions. We have over 800 of you registered for this evening. So as you can imagine, there are going to be lots of questions coming through, and I want to extend my gratitude to the dedicated staff from a number of different institutions who are with us tonight to help by answering your questions. So my name is Daniel Barkowitz, and I am Assistant Vice President for Financial Assistance and Student Employment at the University of Miami. And it's my pleasure to welcome you this evening in partnership with Bridge to Life and Broward Education Foundation, and our partners at Florida Atlantic University and Broward College. All of us are working together really in FAFSA beta testing. And as you know, if you sat with us in our webinar last week, you've gotten through the hard thing, which was getting your access to FAFSA beta, and you're now ready to dive in and complete your FAFSA. So tonight, we're going to walk you through how do you actually complete the FAFSA. What do you need to watch out for? What are the tricks and tips as you go through the FAFSA? I'm going to encourage you to actually have another browser open on your window, maybe another screen if you have a second screen, or maybe another device as you're working through this, so that we can actually complete the FAFSA together, you and me. So as we're going through this and I'm showing you the questions, you can actually go ahead and answer this on the device you're using to track alongside us and complete your FAFSA as we go. So together, by the time this evening is over, my hope is that you'll be able to get your FAFSA complete. If you lose track or you're unable to have a second device, don't worry. Again, we are sending you a copy of the video recording from tonight. We'll get you a copy of these slides or tell you where to get them from. So again, if you want to come back and look at this again, you'll have a chance to do that and to work through the FAFSA on your own in your own time. Once you have access to the FAFSA, you are in the beta FAFSA testing window. The Department of Education is asking you to spend the next couple of days to get your FAFSA done. Hopefully, most of you will be able to do it this evening. The beta FAFSA window, they want you to complete this by November 7th. But the truth is you never lose access to FAFSA. So once you're in, you have access to the FAFSA to complete on your time. The FAFSA will open up for the general public on or before December 1st, but you have access to it starting now. And if there are any issues, again, I'll walk you through how to reach out for help or where to go for further assistance after today. What we're going to do is show you some screenshots of what the FAFSA form is going to look like. And as it says here, will be available by December 1. And remember, we're going to go through a sort of typical dependent student who invites their parent to contribute. So the first place we're going to begin is as a dependent student. So the first thing you need to do is you need to log in to the FAFSA. There are a couple of different ways for you to do that. One is to go ahead and visit the direct website, studentaid.gov/FAFSA apply or FAFSA-apply/2526. If you don't remember that, don't worry. I'm going to click on it just to show you what that will open up. And for me, because I am not yet logged in, what it's going to show you in just a second is it will show you this window, which is basically a request for me to log in using my FSA ID. Remember, we created our FSA IDs the last time we were together. So I'd be typing in my username and my password, and that would get me into the FAFSA form. If I don't remember that, right, or I don't remember that direct link and you didn't have a chance to write it down, if you just come to studentaid.gov, again, main studentaid.gov page, if you click on log in, Once you're logged in as the student, assuming you got the email from the department telling you you were ready to complete your FAFSA form, you need to log in first, but then you can come to complete the FAFSA form and you will see a 2526 link. If you have not yet logged in, you'll see what looks like here, coming soon, right? Because you don't have access to beta until you log in. So you need to log in to get access to the beta. But once you're logged in, you are able to access that beta FAFSA for you and then hopefully your contributors as well. So once you're logged in, you're going to see something that looks like this. Start a 2526 FAFSA form. That is the box or the button you want to click. And I just want to mention again, for those of you who are applying for admission for fall of 2025, this is your form. If you're applying for spring of 2026, this is your form. If you happen to be attending tonight and you're thinking about maybe going to summer college, or you're starting college with some program in the summer, or maybe you're graduating high school early and you want to start as soon as this January, then you're going to complete the 24-25 FAFSA, which is open already. So if you're a student who's going to be starting either this spring or perhaps this coming summer, you probably want to check with the college to make sure for summer which year they want, but you'll do the 24-25 FAFSA. If you're starting in the fall, which will be most of you, then you want to do the 25-26 FAFSA. So once you're in, you're going to click Start a New Form. And again, we're going to go through what a student will see as you go through the form as the student side. And remember, the student needs to log in using their FSA ID and the password there. Remember, students have to go first because they have to invite their parents. And their parents will be the ones who get then access to the 25-26 FAFSA from there. So let's go through it. And we'll talk about the parents section when we get there. We're not there yet, but we'll talk about that. So again, you're going to log in using that FSA ID. Once you're logged in to the form, you're going to see a question, that asks, are you logging in as a student or a parent? If you're the student, we're going to start the form as a student. It's better if you start the form as a student. It's easier. The process works smoother. So we're going to always suggest that you begin as the student and then invite your parents to be parent or parents to be part of the application. You're going to start with the student access. So student, you're going to click continue. From there, there are 4 short videos that will play for you. Now, when we go through this tonight, you're going to see that a lot of the questions that we go through and talk about are the same for the student side and the parent side. So these 4 videos, you're going to have a chance to watch them once as a student and a second time as a parent. And much of this is just information I'm already going to tell you, but not everyone has the benefit of going through one of these webinars. So these videos are really to help you understand what is the FAFSA form, number one. What is a contributor and why might you need a contributor? So again, remember we talked about contributors at our FSA ID workshop, where we talked about having to fill out the information for your contributors and deciding which parent or parents are a contributor for a dependent student. And then the third talks about what to expect, how long does it take, what does it mean to provide consent, etc. And the last video tells you what happens after you submit your form. So all 4 of those videos will play. If you want to, you can also just skip them and start the form itself. So the very next screen you're going to see is a recapitulation, restatement of all of the identity information for you as the student. It's going to say, and in this example, it's Jenny Price. Jenny Price, here's your date of birth, your social security number, your email address, etc. If any of that information is changed, you need to go to your account settings on studentaid.gov to change it. You cannot change it here, but this just confirms you're logged in as the correct person. The next screen asks about the student's date of birth. Sorry, I take that back. Student's state of legal residence, sorry. What is the student's state of legal residence? The reason I say date of birth is because for most of you, that probably will be your date of birth, unless you moved to your state. So let's say you were born in Florida, you live in Florida, your state of legal residence is Florida, and the day you moved to Florida was basically the day you were born. So you're going to put your month and day when you became a legal resident. If you became a legal resident more recently than that, you moved to Florida, let's say in the last 6 years, if you can pretty much approximate or guess the date, month, and year that you moved in, that would be your best plan, right? Is to do it that way. Now, again, for many of you, this is date of birth as a student. For parents, it may be more complicated. When it comes to parent information, it's also going to ask this question as well. And if your parents both moved to the state at different times, I would use the older date of the two when it comes to parent information on the parent side. Just so you're aware, this date really doesn't matter much as long as it's over a year ago. In Florida, the requirement is you have to have been a legal resident of the state of Florida for at least a year if you want to qualify for state of Florida financial aid. You have to have lived here at least a year before you start school in the fall, if that's when you're beginning. So again, this is the state of legal residence page. The next page is where you're going to provide your approval and consent. And again, let's talk about this for a second. So consent is required. This is a situation where if you do not agree to provide consent to pull your information from the IRS, you cannot receive federal financial aid. Once you consent, your information will be connected to the IRS. They will look to see if you had a matching tax return. And if so, they will pull your information automatically. If you don't, they will note that you do not have a tax return, but you have to provide consent to apply for federal financial aid. This disclosure, it's a pretty long disclosure, walks you through why that is required. And at the end, it asks you to approve that consent. If you do not approve the consent, you will get a warning message that says you will not be eligible for financial aid. And if that's a situation, it will say, are you sure? Give you a chance to, again, provide consent. Consent has to be provided by you and also approved by your contributors in order to receive federal financial aid. Once you approve your consent, then the department will actually go out and pull your information from the IRS. And you'll see this screen that shows you that information is actually being retrieved. So we'll immediately go out and collect your information from the IRS and import it directly to your FAFSA. If there is no federal tax information available, you'll see this message that says, we couldn't find tax information for you. You're going to need to hand enter your information. For most of you, that's not going to be the case, but if that happens, that is a possibility. You'll see something like that. So now we're going to move into the personal circumstances section of the application. And what you'll see as we go through is that the FAFSA helps you identify where you are in the application by giving you these signposting messages. Right? It tells you a little bit about the section as you go. And you'll see right here that there are 5 sections the student's going to complete. And we're in the first of these sections, and that is the personal circumstances section. We're going to assume that this student we're talking about is a dependent student, and you'll understand what we mean. We talked about this in our last webinar, but you'll understand what we mean as we go through, because again, as a dependent student, the student will not be married, they'll be single. So again, we're asking about the student's marital status. The student is single, never married. Then I'll ask, what year of college is the student going to be entering in the 25-26 year? And we're going to assume that this is a first-year freshman and that they will not have their first bachelor's degree. Please be careful on this screen, because if you choose, I will have my bachelor's degree, and you don't already have one, you'll automatically turn yourself down from a number of financial aid programs. Also, if you have previous college credit, unless you know you're going to be a second-year sophomore or a third year or something else, you want to choose first-year freshman, even if you've taken dual enrollment credit before. You want to make sure to understand that you're really a first-year student, a freshman student. The next screen asks about a number of different possible special circumstances. So if you meet any of these unusual circumstances or opportunities for special circumstances, the message here is that you may be what's called an independent student. And we talked about independent students before. But as a reminder, if you are currently serving an active duty, if you're a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, if you have children of your own that you're providing more than half of the support for, if you're an orphan, a ward of the court, if you were in foster care, an emancipated minor, or in legal guardianship, you may be an independent student. And if that's the case, you would check the one or more boxes that apply to you. Again, chances are most of you are going to have the answer of none of the above. But if you do have any of these circumstances, you would click one of them, and that will note you as an independent student. The next question asks, are you homeless or at risk of being homeless and unaccompanied? So the other piece that's important here is, while we recognize there are homeless families, this is specifically asking about students who are not with their parents and are homeless or at risk of being homeless. If that is true, you would click yes, and then provide information about how you've determined that, either by a McKinney-Vento specialist at your school, or by a financial aid officer you've met with, or by a shelter. So that would be the case. In this case, the student is selected no. The next screen gives us an opportunity to indicate if there are special circumstances that might prevent the student from contacting their parents, or would contacting their parents pose a risk to the student. This might be the case if the student is subject or a victim of neglect or abuse, or some other estrangement or abandonment. If that's the case, you would click yes and provide some documentation to the financial aid office at one of the colleges that you're applying to for admission. And you would be declared what's called a provisionally independent student. So for the moment, we would call you independent, but you're still going to have to document that to the satisfaction of the financial aid office to show why you're unable to get or collect parent information. In this case, this student has answered no and is going to click continue. Now, this is the most confusing question on the FAFSA. So I want to make sure that you're paying attention to this question. And I'm going to say a lot of students messed this up last year. So I want to highlight this question for you and talk about what this means. So in some cases, very rare, a student's parents might refuse to provide information for the FAFSA. If that is the case, a student can qualify for only a direct unsubsidized loan. That is a small loan only in the student's name, and the government does not pay interest on it while the student's in school. It's not applying for financial aid, it's applying for just this one individual limited loan. If you're in a situation where you don't qualify for dependency, or you're not otherwise independent, you need your parents' information, and your parents are refusing, you can choose yes here, and you will only be qualified for an unsubsidized loan. But for most of you, you're going to choose no. You're going to say, my parents are willing to provide information. They're not refusing. And so I'm going to say no. My parents are willing to provide information. I don't have to worry about a direct unsub only, and I'm going to click continue. So again, just a reminder that this is only for unusual circumstances where a parent is refusing. And as an aside, if your parents are refusing to provide information because A, they can't afford college, or because they're worried about being asked to contribute too much, just a reminder, the FAFSA doesn't require a contribution from your parents. All it requires is information, right? Nothing ever on the FAFSA says your parent has to pay anything. It's just an application for aid. So what I find often is parents are confused by that. And the whole point of the application is to determine whether or not a parent can afford college, but not whether or not that parent's going to pay. So often that's enough to get families able to at least move on here and see if their student can qualify for aid. So once you move past that, we're now going to get some information about parents. Now, again, I want to be clear about this, and we're going to talk about how do you match your parents' information and what do you have to note on here. So if you're a beta participant and you're starting with parent information, chances are your parents won't be able to access the beta because, again, you have not invited them to be part of the beta yet. So that's why I suggested you really should start as a student on the application, not as a parent. And it's really important that when you did the interest form for the beta, that you listed your parents as contributors. If you did not, you can do your section of the beta, but when it comes time to invite your parents, unless you listed them, the ones you need to complete the application, and their correct email addresses, they will not be able to access the beta FAFSA. They will after December 1st, but they won't be able to until December 1st. So again, really important to understand that the beta needed to list both you as a student and the parent who wanted to complete the FAFSA. And we talked about that at our last webinar. If you missed that, then unfortunately we cannot fix that. That's out of our control. That's with the Department of Education. But after December 1, your parent will be able to log in. But it's really important that you follow this along. And I'm going to talk about the information you need to match and how this process works. So again, you're going to say, this is about your parents. And there are 4 questions here that are what are called the parent wizard. And in this case, these parents are married to each other. So this is a pretty simple case, but I'm going to look at a more complicated case. So let's pull up parent wizard for the FAFSA. So I'm going to choose 2 parents. I'm going to call them Daniel, my name, and Rebecca, my wife's name. And I'm going to click continue. So when you're on your FAFSA, it's not going to ask you about this by your parents' actual names, but this is basically the same information. And I'm going to go through this with you just to make sure you understand the different options here to understand which parent are you going to file your FAFSA with. So if we are married, the 2 of us are married, then we're going to file the FAFSA for our student. And let's say our student's name is Colleen. We're going to file the FAFSA for Colleen together. Daniel and Rebecca will. Really important, the student only needs to invite one parent to the FAFSA form, either me or Rebecca. And if the parents file taxes jointly, we filed as married taxes jointly, then only one parent has to be a contributor. And I'll report in that situation information on both of us. If we didn't file our taxes jointly, then both of us have to be contributors. But chances are, if we're married, unless there's a tax reason that we didn't file together, then likely only one of us is going to have to do the FAFSA. And we went through this again last time we met, but Colleen might have Daniel and Rebecca as her parents, and because we're married to each other, only one of us needs to do the FAFSA unless we filed separately from each other or didn't file taxes at all. What about if we're not married to each other and we're not separated, so we're divorced? If we're divorced, or we never married, the next question says, do we live together? Well, yeah, we live together. So we never got married. We have a kid. Colleen's our kid. We never actually legally got married. We just lived together. But Colleen is our kid. So in that situation, again, we're both parents on the FAFSA form, and only one parent needs to be invited. But chances are we don't file our taxes jointly because we're not married, unless we're a common law wedding. So in that situation, probably both of us are going to have to be contributors on that FAFSA form. So we'll each need to do our own section separately. So that is the second scenario you might face. Well, what if we don't live together? What if we're divorced and we don't live together? Or we never married and we don't live together? Then the next question asks, which parent has provided more financial support over the last 12 months? Meaning, which parent paid for more of your bills as a student? And paid for your housing, paid for your food, paid for your travel? Who paid more for you? If it's exactly equal, then choose the parent with a greater income and assets. But notice it doesn't ask who claimed you on your tax return. It doesn't ask who do you live with. It asks which parent provides more financial support. Well, Rebecca does. And then it says, did Rebecca remarry? Well, yes, she did. There's another spouse. So now Rebecca and Rebecca's spouse are the ones needed on the FAFSA form. And they're the parents that are going to be listed on that form. And again, if they file taxes jointly, only Rebecca has to be a contributor. But if they didn't, then both that parent and the spouse have to be separate contributors. So you want to make sure you read very carefully the information that's here. In this case, with our case, Jenny Price, her parents are married. They've never divorced. They always have been married to each other. These are her biological or adoptive parents. So as a result, there's no other pieces of information to provide here. Now, remember, a parent in this case means biological or adoptive. It doesn't mean legal guardian. It doesn't mean grandparent. It doesn't mean sister, unless you've legally adopted that child. So if you're in guardianship, you're independent. We already talked about that. If your parents are deceased and you're an orphan, you're independent unless you've been adopted by another set of parents. So again, it talks about the biological or adoptive parent in this definition. Okay, so here is the information. Now, it only is asking us to invite one parent. Remember, we looked at this before, if I go back, because it said only invite one parent. We see the optional note here, and we don't have to invite that second parent. Now, here is the question. So again, I want to talk about what happens if my parents don't have a social security number. First of all, when you type this information in, really important, you match the date of birth of your parent and the social security number of your parent, as well as your parent's email address. That email address needs to match the email address that you provided or they provided on their FSA ID and you provided on the interest form. Please make sure that that is a match for that same email address, or else they will not be able to access the beta FAFSA. Remember, this is all to make sure you have access to the beta. If your parents don't have a social security number, and remember, your parents don't have to have or be a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen for you to receive financial aid as a student. You have to be a citizen or eligible non-citizen, but your parents don't. So it's possible your parents don't have an SSN. You only want to check this box if your parent doesn't have an SSN. If they do have one and you don't know it, please do not click that box. Find out what it is. You only want to click that box if your parent doesn't have an SSN. If you click that box, a series of boxes will open up that will ask you to type in your parent's mailing address. And here is where this was really, really important. We talked about this before. The mailing address you enter here has to exactly match the mailing address you entered or your parent entered on the creation of their FSA ID. Remember, this is only important if your parent doesn't have an SSN, but it has to be an exact match to that address from before. So, for example, if it's 72nd Street, you live on 72nd Street, and in one case you type 72 space ND space ST period, you can't here write in 72 ND space street. It has to exactly match character for character what they typed in on their application. If you abbreviated road, you have to abbreviate road. So again, this only is really important for those of you whose parents don't have an SSN, but it has to be an exact match. So just highlighting that for you. Okay, moving on. So we're done with the first section. The next section is student demographics, and let's go through that. There are a couple of optional questions and some mandatory questions. These first questions are optional. It asks for your gender. You can say prefer not to answer if you want to, or you can answer male, female, or non-binary. The second question asks about your race and ethnicity. Again, if you're of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, this is also optional. And the third asks about race. These are also optional. You can answer them, or you can check prefer not to answer. They will not be used in the awarding of financial aid. They're for tracking purposes for the federal government. You can choose to answer them or not answer them at your choice. This next page is required, and this is about your student citizenship. Remember, I talked about this just a moment ago. You have to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen to be receiving federal financial aid. And so you're going to want to check one of those two boxes. It's unlikely you'll be completing the FAFSA if you're neither a U.S. citizen nor eligible non-citizen. If you're not, you want to talk to the college about, or universities you're applying to, about whether there might be other financial aid options available to you. But chances are you are either a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen completing this form. The next page asks about your parents' college attendance status. And while this is not used really to award federal financial aid, some colleges may have programs for first time in college students or first generation students. So please answer this about your parents and their completion status. Did they attend college? Did they complete college? Or you just don't know? The next page asks if a parent was killed in the line of duty. This is either because they were on active duty serving the armed forces after 9/11, or they were performing other official duties as a public safety officer. If you answered yes, you'll have to provide some information to the college or university you're applying to, but in most cases, you're going to answer no here. Next asks about your high school completion status. Again, we're talking about the student here. How are you going to complete high school? Is that with a high school diploma, a GED, or homeschool? It asks you to identify which one of these is true for you. And then it asks you to search for your high school. And you can see an example here. You can choose the state. You can choose the state and the city, moving a little bit on its own. And then once you do, you can type in the high school name and it will prompt that for you. And then choose the right high school from the list of high schools listed. And then you can confirm the high school that you are, or you graduate, or planning on graduating from, or graduated from. That's it for section 2. We now move on to section 3 for the student, and this is your finances. So again, this is about the finances related to your tax information or other information. The first question asks, did you file a 1040 or 1040 NR, non-resident? And in this case, the student's going to answer yes. And remember, when we went through this process before, their information didn't automatically match. So it's going to ask some questions that a student whose information did automatically match wouldn't have to answer. For many of you, because your information will automatically match, you won't have to provide answers to these questions. But we're showing you the questions just in case you do have to provide them. And the reason it may come up is because, and I'll highlight for you which ones are which. If it doesn't match, it'll ask you for some information. So in this case, it's asking for your filing status, how much you earned from work, how much was tax-exempt interest income. So these first questions, you would only be asked if we couldn't match your information. The untaxed portions of IRA distributions, you will be asked regardless. Now, let me define what that is. Most of you students will not have retirement accounts at this point. Parents, you may. If there are portions of your retirement accounts that are untaxed, that you received in the calendar year 2023, and we're using 2023 as the calendar year for your tax information, because right now that is the last tax year we're going to have information on when you complete your FAFSA. That will be the tax information we use for the 25-26 academic year. It's going to ask you to report how much of that IRA individual retirement account was distributed to you. Students, you're probably going to answer 0. You're probably going to answer 0 to tax-exempt interest. And unless you had income that you earned from work, you're probably going to answer 0 there as well. These next questions, again, are primarily only going to be asked of students who did not link up with their tax information. So it's asking you for untaxed portions of pensions, adjusted gross income, how much income tax you paid, etc. There are a couple of questions here that everyone's going to have to answer. One of them is the amount of college grants, scholarships, or AmeriCorps benefits that you reported as income. So students, you have not attended college, obviously, so most of you won't have college grants or scholarships that were income. There may be a possibility that at some future year, you might have to declare some of your income as income from these grants or scholarships, and this allows you to exclude that from consideration for financial aid. But most of you are going to answer 0. And most of you students aren't going to have income you earned from work that you earned in a foreign country. That is what foreign earned income exclusion is. Again, probably most of these are going to be 0 for most of you. So now we turn to assets. So let's talk about assets. So all of you are going to be asked to provide information about your assets. These are assets as of the day you fill out the FAFSA, so as of today. How much students do you have in your cash, savings, and checking account? Um, how much investments do you have? Now, again, this doesn't include homes. So I know students aren't probably going to have their own home, but remember, parents, you're going to see these same questions as well. You're not going to include home. You're not going to include retirement accounts that are like 401k accounts or specially designated retirement accounts. You are going to include amounts of prepaid tuition plans, but let me talk about those. So, for example, a 529 plan or a Florida prepaid plan, those are assets, but where do they go? They go into the assets of the person who owns the account. So I'll give you an example. So again, before I said Colleen was my child, I'm her father. Let's say I bought a 529 plan for her. I started saving in Florida tuition prepaid plan a long time ago, and I put the money in. I set the account up so it's my account. I'm the account owner, but Colleen is the beneficiary. When Colleen does her section of the application, it's not her account. So she's not going to list it as her asset. When I do my section as her father, I would have to list it if I did my section. Well, what about if her grandmother bought it for her? Her grandmother bought her a 529 plan. Where does it get listed? It doesn't get listed because whose asset is it? It's the asset of the grandparent. And remember, you're only listing assets of student here or parent later. So again, you've got investments, not the home, business investment farms. Chances are most students don't own a business and don't own an investment farm. But as parents, if you do, when it comes to your section, you're going to put information about any business you might own, any asset in that business. Okay, moving on. So that's the end of the finance section. We're now going to move to the colleges. And this is where you're going to list the colleges that you want to list on your FAFSA. And I want to just say a word about this. So when you're listing your colleges, you can list up to 20 colleges on this FAFSA. If you're applying to more than 20 colleges, I'm going to walk you through how you would do that in a second. But beforehand, let's talk about who you're going to list here. I would list on the FAFSA any college that you are planning on applying to for admission. You do not have to wait until you are admitted by the college. You don't even have to wait until you apply. So right now, if you think you're going to be applying to a college, I would list it on the FAFSA. Go ahead and get them their FAFSA. Make sure that they can receive it from you. And then if you need to later, right, you can add another college if you change your mind, or you can apply for admission to that institution. But you want to list all of the colleges you can on the FAFSA. Some of you might be applying to more than 20 colleges. If you are, you want to apply first to the 20 that have the earliest financial aid deadlines. And you would find that out by going onto their webpage and finding out when they suggest the application be returned to them. You want to list the 20 with the first deadlines first. Once you do that, and you get something back, which we'll talk about, called a FAFSA submission summary, which is a form saying, yes, we've processed your FAFSA. Here's all the information we sent to your schools. At that point, and at that point only, you're going to log back in and make what's called a correction. So you're going to replace as many of those 20 schools with the next set of schools that you want to apply to, and it will then send it to those schools. You're not going to do the FAFSA twice. You're going to do one FAFSA per year, list the 20 colleges, send it in, wait for it to come back as a FAFSA submission summary, and then you can go back in and replace with as many additional colleges as you might need to. Hopefully you're not applying to more than 40, any of you, but if you need to, you can do that as many times as you need to get all of the colleges listed. Now, when you list a college, you have some choices. You can look them up by state. You can look them up by name of college. You can also click on this box that says, and if I go back just a second, that says search by school code. If you search by school code, every college will give you their school code. It's going to be on their webpage, and you can look up their federal school code directly. So if you were applying to a national university, their school code 011460, you can type that right in and just select it that way. And you're going to click selected or select to make sure that they're listed. And again, you can list up to 20 colleges. So once you've selected your 20 colleges, You're going to click continue. And that's really it. I mean, you've done most of the form. Now we have to sign it, but those were the four important sections for the student. This next page gives you some information about what you've just done. And your choice is you could, if you wanted to, go through and open up each of these or click the expand all button and look at all the answers you've provided to edit a response or to change your response. But it's just an opportunity for you to look at all the questions you've provided answers to. You are not done. You have not yet signed your form. Really important that you keep on going by clicking on continue at the base of this form. You can also see in this case, Mark Price, our student's parent, has been sent an invitation immediately for him to do his section. And we're going to look at his section in just a moment. But that is how we know that Mark was listed as the parent for our student, for Jenny Price. So once we step through that, we're now at the page for signature. And if you click through this page, at the bottom of the page, there's a check box that says I, your name, agree to the terms outlined above. You click sign, and your section as the student is done. You're not done with the FAFSA as a whole, though, because the parent still needs to do their section. But you, the student, will now have this page that says, congratulations, your section is complete, and it tells you an invite has been sent to Mark Price. So from there, we're now going to turn to the parent section, which we'll talk through in just a second. But before we do, I just want to mention again that you're going to want to now log out of this web page if you're doing this with us live, because your parent is going to log in as themselves. So really important, again, that you make sure that you've logged out as a student before your parent takes over and logs in for themselves. Now, in the meantime, again, this is what the students section will show. You're going to see that FAFSA submission summary I talked about once your application is complete, and you'll get an email to confirm your section's been done. This is a copy of what the email would look like to Mark. So Mark, again, is Jenny's parent. Mark's going to get an email to the email address that Jenny provided that says, hey, Jenny invited you to be part of her FAFSA. Please click on Get Started so we can start your section of the application. So again, once Mark receives this email, he can click on the Get Started button and he'll be taken directly to log in. The other option is once your student has done their section, and now I'm talking to you parents, you can just go right to studentaid.gov and log in yourself and go to your dashboard. And you will see on your dashboard an invitation to complete the parent section of your student's application. Now, a few notes. Remember, as I said before, if your student did not list you correctly on the beta interest form, you won't see that invitation until after December 1st. Really important that your student listed you on that beta interest form, listed a matching email address, because otherwise you will not see that invitation. But if he did or she did, and you have, or they did, and you have an invitation in your account, you'll be able to access that parent information. And it will look like this. So you'll get an invitation that says, you've been invited to be a parent on Jenny's, in this case, FAFSA form. Again, remember, you don't have to wait for the email to come to you. You can, as a parent, as long as your student has listed you correctly, you should be able to log in and see this right on the FAFSA itself under your information, your login, parents, your student aid ID, username, and password. So once you're in, it's going to give you a pop-up that says, remember, you're sharing your information with the student. Are you okay with that? Yes, you are. And we're going to continue. Now, much of what you're going to see looks very similar to the student section. And that's on purpose because much of it is similar to the student section. So we're going to get those same 4 videos we talked about before. What is the FAFSA, who contributes, what to expect, and what happens after you submit. And then, like before, we're going to give you the information to confirm it's really you. And like before, you can't update it here. You have to log in to the account settings to change any information. And then we get to the consent page. So much like before, it's going to ask for your permission to go to the IRS and pull the information from the IRS. Again, as a reminder, parent, you have to provide consent if you want your student to receive federal financial aid. So although this is an option to decline, really you don't want to decline, because if you decline, there really isn't a purpose to doing the FAFSA anyway. You'll want to click accept or approve. Once you click approve, again, you'll see the same progress bar loading the information from the IRS into the FAFSA. And in this case, again, we're going to say there's no federal tax information. And most of you are going to get a confirmed. So I'm going to show you the harder version. Most of you are going to see the easier version where your information is confirmed. You do not have to answer all the tax questions we're going to see on this application. But again, we wanted to show you the more difficult option just in case, or in case there might be a change in your marital status from your 2023 taxes, which we'll talk about as well. Okay, so now we're in parent demographics. So once again, we're going to go through multiple sections of a parent form. What you'll notice, though, is with Jenny, if you remember, there were 5 sections. With the parents, there are only 3 sections. It's pretty quick. So we're going to go through this pretty quickly because there's not a lot of information really to collect. The first is on demographics. So what is the parent's marital status? So in this case, this parent is married. Mark is married. And so he's going to click on married and click continue. But if you're not, you can click the particular marital status that pertains to you. Again, we talked about this before. It's going to ask for parent state of legal residence. So when did Mark become a resident of the state of Georgia in this case, or Florida in our case? And that's it for the parent demographics. So now we're going to move into parent finances. So remember in the example that I gave you, the tax information did not carry over. So I'll highlight for you which questions you're going to have to answer if they did carry over, and which ones were required because it did not carry over the IRS information. In this case, this page will show for everyone, and it's asking you, are there special benefits that you received, federal benefits, as a parent or anyone in your family during either 23 or 24, calendar year 23 or 24. The reason these don't affect your student aid eligibility, but they're important for us for tracking purposes. So again, it's going to ask you to identify which programs you receive benefits from, if you receive benefits from any of these, and if not, you're just going to click none of these apply, and you're going to move on. So it's going to ask about tax filing status. This is only going to be asked if you, actually, this will be asked of everyone. Did you file a 23 IRS tax form 1040? Yes. Did you file it with your current spouse? Yes or no? Let me talk about that second question. So in some cases, parents might have gotten a divorce since 2023, or a parent, sadly, might be widowed since 2023. Right? Or a parent, more happily, might have been married since 2023. So in those situations, you would click no under the second question because your current spouse is not the person you filed a joint return with in 2023. If that's the case, one of you may have to enter in hand information into the FAFSA. But if you are married to the same person, or your marital status hasn't changed since 2023, and it's the same person or no one that you filed with, then in that situation, you would click yes, and you just move on and not have a problem with having to hand enter information. But remember, this FAFSA is used by everyone. So it's used by families who might have a change in marital status, which is why it provides you that option. This next question asks about family size. Now, this is an optional response, but I'm going to suggest for most of you that you go ahead and fill it out anyway, just to confirm the number of children in your family. So it's going to know, based on previous answers, they've made some assumptions. So they've assumed that there's one parent, one spouse, one student, and one other child. So it's asking, are there other children that meet this criteria other than the student? So in this case, they have one other child. They put in the one. But let's say there's a newborn, right? Maybe you have a newborn that was born since you filed taxes in 2023. Maybe you want to say two here. So this is asking, are there other members of the family that we're not including that we should be including? Be prepared if you provide an answer here. You may have to provide clarification to the college as to who that is and why you're including an additional person. So the next question is just really for information purposes. It says, of the people in your family, how many will be in college during the upcoming year? And don't include parents. So this is really about siblings or other members of the family who might be in college. It's just for information purposes. It's not going to be used for anything in financial aid determination, but it's asking this information for that. Okay, moving on. So again, remember this parent had did not match their IRS information. So they're being asked a lot of tax questions. Most of you are not going to get these questions because your tax information will automatically be synced over. But if it wasn't, you'll have, or if you chose, I'm now married to a different spouse, you'll have to answer some of these questions about your filing status, your income from work, your tax exempt income, etc. And on each of these, if you click on the box, you can enter in the dollars directly and the cents directly into the information. If you're not sure where to find the information, there's a blue link at the top of the form that says, where do I find this information on the tax form? You can click that box and that will open up for you and show you where. But for most of you, you're not going to have to answer most of these questions up to this question that asks about amount of college grant scholarships or AmeriCorps benefits. So much like before, this question only matters if you paid income tax on scholarships you received to go to school. Parents, most of you don't have this, so you're going to put 0. But let's say you might be in grad school and you're getting a scholarship for grad school, and it was taxable. It had to be paid taxes on in 2023. You would put the amount of the income there that you had from that scholarship or grant. Most of you are not going to have that, so it should be pretty easy to skip over. Foreign income exclusion, that is if you earn more money in a foreign country and you got to exclude it from your taxes for US taxation purposes, you would put the amount there. Again, most of you are not going to have this. And we talked about the assets before. Remember, house does not get reported. Your retirement does not get reported here if it's a specially designated retirement account. The one new question is the annual child support received. If you received child support, parents, the amount you received in the last complete calendar year, which would be 2023, would be reported here under annual child support received. That's where you put that value in. But again, most of you will not have that. Colleen, you're on video. If you don't know, you may want to mute your video, just letting you know. Thank you. So again, child support received gets reported there if you have it. Otherwise, you're going to have a 0, and you'll report the amount of your cash, savings, and checking. If you have other investments, including a 529 plan, you'd report that under investments or other liquid investments like a money market account or those kinds of things. And then parents, if you own a business or you own a farm, an investment farm, you put the amount of the ownership equity in that third line there. But again, probably that's going to be a few of you, if any of you. So once you're done with the parent asset information, it's going to ask, who is the other parent? It's, again, in most cases, you're not going to need to provide information from that other parent. In this case, what Mark was able to provide covers all the information for both parents because they filed the tax return jointly. But we still need to provide information so we know who that second parent is. They're going to click continue, and then that's it. Essentially, now we're going to move to the signature section. So like before, you're going to go through and review the information you provided. At the bottom of the page, you're going to click to sign and submit. And it says sign and submit now because the parent's done their section. And by signing and submitting, they're actually submitting the FAFSA for processing. Once you've done that, you're going to get a confirmation page that says, congratulations, your FAFSA form is complete. And an email is going to be sent to the student. That email is really important because that email is going to be how you can receive a benefit from Bridge to Life for having done your FAFSA. So I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But here's the confirmation page to the parent saying, congratulations, you've done your section. Okay, so here we go. So we did commit to providing to those of you who get your FAFSA done and are able to submit it a $20 Amazon gift card. If you can pull out your phone and capture this QR code, this is the link to submit your proof of submission. And we are providing a $20 Amazon gift card, one per family, on a first come, first served basis as our funds remain, to those of you who complete your FAFSA. That $20 is yours to spend as you would like. Again, and we're going to keep on doing this until we run out of the funds we have available to help support you. And what you need to do when you click on that link is provide us a copy of the email that says, congratulations, your FAFSA is complete. That email will allow you then to be uploaded into our Google form. This is a link to a Google form. And once you do that, we will then process your $20 Amazon gift card and get that to you. Okay. So I want to show you a couple more things, and then I'm going to stop and take whatever questions you might have and see if there's other information that you might want to ask. What I want to show you is what happens once you're done. So once you're done, you're going to get this thing, again, that we call the FAFSA submission summary. So let's go there and let me get down to this page. Hold on. Let me actually stop the share and reshare. Hold on. So here's the FAFSA submission summary section. So when you log in, you're going to get a FAFSA submission summary that you can see that says your FAFSA has been submitted, tells you when it came through, tells you when the application was processed, shows you what's called a data release number, which is a number you can provide to a college in case you forgot to list them, and they can retrieve your FAFSA. It also tells you some information about what kind of financial aid you might be eligible for. It gives you what's called your student aid index number. Your student aid index number is the number that is used to determine your federal student aid. And it gives you your FAFSA answers. And if you look, there's a blue button here that says make a correction. If you made an error on some part of your FAFSA and you need to log back in, or maybe you want to list additional colleges, that's how you make your correction. So you would log in back to studentaid.gov, pull up your FAFSA submission summary, and click on that make a correction box, which then allows you to go ahead and process whatever correction you might want to. So again, going through, there's some other information that's there that'll show you a little bit about how the process works for you. If you do, again, want to add another school to your FAFSA form, there's a way to do that. And let me see if I can quickly move us to that slide. What I'm going to do is let me end this again. And let me show you the process for adding a college. So again, if you want to add a college to your FAFSA, you're going to come back into the FAFSA. You're going to log back in. Under dashboard, you're going to see it says there's a section here that says my FAFSA form. You're going to click on the details page. It will take you to your details on the FAFSA form. And then from here, you can see add or remove schools. So when you click on add or remove schools, that will take you right to the section where you can add or remove other schools to your FAFSA. And this is how to correct your FAFSA. So again, it will walk you through. You can add the individual colleges you want and submit and save. It's very similar like you did before. You just go ahead and select the colleges you want. You click continue. You have to sign it again, because once you make a correction, you always have to re-sign the form. Your parents will not have to, though. That moves on its way, and it will go ahead and get the information needed to your parents. Okay, so with that, what I'd like to do is go ahead and answer some of the questions that I know were saved for live answer, and also see if there are other questions that come up as we continue. So I just want to say um, this is really the information we have for you. We hope that FAFSA completion is helpful for you in walking through it. Again, we will tomorrow send you a link to the recording. We'll also get you a copy to the slides or a link to where you can find the slides, as well a link to the gift card form, so you can go ahead and fill that out. And if you have questions, let's go ahead and start answering some of the questions that have been submitted. So the very first question I'm going to answer, in the student high school completion status screen, it says homeschooled. My son is a Florida virtual flex student. Is he homeschooled, or is it a state recognized high school equivalent? Florida Virtual Flex does not give a traditional diploma. So if it doesn't give a traditional diploma, I would choose the homeschooled option. You may want to confirm that with Florida Virtual. They may be able to provide you a better response, but my guess is you're going to want to provide homeschooled and then provide copies of whatever you have as documentation directly to the college or university. So again, just making sure that you have that as your update. Catherine asks, when will I receive approval of your FAFSA application? So it generally takes the department 1 to 2 up to 3 days to process your application. So once you've submitted it and your parents have submitted it, it should take 1 to 3 days before you receive back that it has been approved. Ariana asks, what if we haven't filed our 2023 taxes yet? So remember, at this point, most of the extensions for 2023 have ended. October 15th was the last formal extension from the IRS. So if you still haven't filed your 2023 taxes, you would want to fill it out and provide estimates of what your tax information is. But I would also suggest you want to get your taxes done as soon as possible, because you will need to have them to receive financial aid at the back end, more than likely. So really important that you get that done. Okay. Question, can I watch this again on YouTube or only on the recording that's being sent out tomorrow? I'm presuming that we will post, because we've done this with all of our other webinars, we'll post the recording to YouTube and then send you the link to YouTube. So you should be able to watch this on YouTube ultimately as we go through. And remember, this same information is going to be helpful even after December 1st. So if for some reason something got messed up and you didn't get an invite to the beta FAFSA, or you may be messed up and put the wrong information on the contributors' information, this information is on our YouTube channel, and you can feel free to go back and rewatch any of this at any point. You'll also see that if you go back to the YouTube channel, sadly, maybe, you'll see my face all over the YouTube channel, sadly. So you'll have a chance, as people tell me, I have a face built for radio. You'll see that there are opportunities for you to, and I hope you're laughing. I hope you're laughing. You'll see there's an opportunity for you to take a look and go back and see some of our previous YouTube videos. And just to share with you, because I'll do this really quickly, if you go to YouTube and search for Bridge to Life of South Florida, you'll see the Bridge to Life prep sessions. If you click on live, you'll see the live event that we did 11 days ago, which was our beta interest session. That is on our webpage. It's under live. Otherwise, if you click on home, you'll see some of the videos from the trainings we've done this summer going through the FAFSA. So you should always be able to access that. That's just right in our YouTube channel at Bridge to Life South Florida 740. But if you just look up Bridge to Life, as I did, you'll find us as well. If you click on Bridge to Life again, sadly, you'll find my face, and then you'll be able to figure out where you are from there. Okay, let's see. I have if I have a 529 account and a UTMA, a Universal Transfer to Minors, for each of my 2 children, do I report the value of both in my assets, or only the ones that correspond to the one child attending college next fall? They each have guardianship accounts. Same question. So for all of that, the fundamental question, Nancy, is who is the owner? For the 529 accounts, I'm assuming you are the owner and they're the beneficiary. If you're the owner, it's your account. For the transfer to minors or guardianship accounts, again, if you are the owner, they're your accounts. If the interest on them is yours to pay taxes on, you are the owner, it's your account. And the reason that's important is because assets that are held in a student's name are included at a much higher rate than assets held in a parent's name. So you want to make sure that it's in your name if that is truly your name. Okay, Nadine asks, will we both get a confirmation email? I'm assuming you mean both parent and student after you've done the FAFSA. The student will be the one that gets the confirmation saying your FAFSAs have been processed. I believe the parent gets an email saying their section is done, but I can't be 100% on that, but I presume that is what happens. So again, the YouTube channel, just a reminder, search for Bridge to Life. And what I will do is I will copy this and actually I will paste it into the question so you can find the link there. And Kelsey, thank you for letting me do that. So if you go to the question, I posted the link there for you as well. Okay. Andrea asks, my student worked in 2023, but our accountant said that she didn't earn enough to have to file a return. How do we address the return in her 2023 income on the FAFSA? That is a great question, Andrea. Thank you for asking it. The good news is because she didn't earn enough to have to file a tax return, it isn't counted. The income that she earns does not have to be reported. If you don't file the tax return because you don't earn enough income, it's as though you earn zero income. So the income does not have to be reported. You don't have to worry about putting it anywhere on the FAFSA because it's not taxable. It's not included. Okay. Let's see. So Veronica asks, my son made a mistake. He put both parents and only one will be the contributor. Now will we receive both emails? Where can he fix it? You don't have to fix it as long as, again, you've done your section, one of you, and you married filing jointly, and you listed the other parent. You don't both have to log in. Once the one parent does their section, that should allow it to be signed and submitted, which means that the FAFSA itself is done. So that should be able to move it forward for you. Let's see. If the Florida prepaid is owned by the spouse not listed as a contributor, does it get listed as an asset of the contributor parent? Good question. So I'm gonna give a example of this. So again, let's say Rebecca and Daniel were married. We got divorced. Daniel, I own the 529 plan, but Rebecca is the one who's filling out the FAFSA with the student. Does Rebecca have to list the 529 plan? No, it's not her asset. It only gets listed if I'm actually filling out the form. So again, it's based on the asset of the person who's completing the form. Let's see. If the majority of my savings is in life insurance proceeds received due to the loss of my husband, is there a place to put this information as opposed to just listing it on the FAFSA? I know that life insurance is not included, but the proceeds are now in cash. So that's from an anonymous attendee. First, my sympathies for the loss of your husband. I know that's traumatic, and I lost my dad when I was in high school. So I know that those sort of unexpected things creep up and can cause great trauma. So my sympathy. That is now owned as cash, so it needs to be reported as cash or investment. However, what I would do is I would then reach out to the college after the application is complete and submit an appeal for consideration. And you can do that in the college. I would share with the college the situation of why this has happened and see if they might be willing to consider either ignoring it or ignoring some of it or considering it as retirement assets. But that's going to be a college by college determination. So in that situation, you need to, again, speak with the college directly. Okay, so let's see. Moving on. In the student unusual circumstances, I picked yes since I'm unable to contact a parent. However, I was unable to, actually, it looks like someone's answering that question. I was unable to add my mother to complete the FAFSA. So this question, I'm unable to contact a parent. I guess we need to know more about why you're unable to contact them. So if that's because you're just not in contact with them anymore, right? That isn't necessarily a reason to not include them on the FAFSA. We need to know more. Are you at risk in contacting them? Are you a possible victim of neglect or abuse? Is this just because you've drifted out of touch? Remember, if you are over 24, you do not need to have your parents' information on the form itself. But if you are under 24, your parent information is required. Okay, let's see. There was a question about the Amazon. Did that one get answered? I thought I saw a link. Okay,
I
here we
put the
go.
link in those answers,
You
Daniel.
did. Stefan, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was finding it in the background. You beat me to it. Thank you for that. Okay, so we still have about 10 more minutes. I am happy to continue to answer questions as we go. Michelle says, where will you do this again? Where can we get more help? So, a couple of things, and let me share with you because this is important. I'm going to answer this one, and I'm going to type this so you can get the information I'm going to share. So, first of all, remember we are in beta FAFSA. So, there is a regular phone number for the regular Student Aid Information Center. That number, I'm going to type it in and you'll have it, is 1 800 433 3243. And that's the Federal Student Aid Information Center. That's the normal number that students who are in the normal process would call. I'm also going to tell you, because we are in beta, there's a dedicated beta support center to support those of you who are in beta testing. This information is not available. Oh, shoot. Let's see. I have to go back over there. See if I can find it again. It's not, the beta information is not available to the general public. So, what I may ask is if I get another question, maybe someone, I think I hit return and it won't let me go back to it. Um, Here we go. So what I'm going to do is share with you this slide, but I'm not going to be able to type it as a reply to a question because I don't have the question open anymore. But here is the support center information. So if you need to contact the support center, this is the link for the support center. It's 833 561 4363. If you want to write that number down or take a picture of this screen with your phone, 833 561 4363. This is the beta support center. This is only available to those of you in the beta testing. After December 1, this call center will not exist anymore. So again, this is something to use now if you're having problems with the application. They can help you. Or you can, again, watch our recording once we have the recording available. So, and again, it will process overnight and we'll get it to you all tomorrow. Okay, let's see. Natalie asks, I'm filing a single, never married, and my household size didn't change. So there's actually nowhere to enter on the form. It's automatically blank. That is fine. So if you're single, never married, your household size hasn't changed, that's fine. Just click through it and say 0. If it's 0 additional members of your household, that is fine. Okay, let's see. I put the Florida prepaid in the FAFSA and the parent contributor is not the owner. Can I correct the form and take it out? If you've already submitted the form, you'll have to make that as a correction. If you haven't yet signed or submitted the form, remember when you do your form review, you can go back and change any answer that you need to. If you've already submitted the form, it's going to take 1 to 3 days for it to go through the process. And then once the process is done, you can go back in and make whatever corrections you need to. I have a question. I'm one of the parents. I am living out of the USA. There's no option to put addresses out of the USA. It's not true. There are options of putting addresses out of the USA. It depends on what form you're looking at. Within the FAFSA, you can actually list a non-USA address. You have to go back through, though, and choose foreign country under state. That is one of the states that you can choose. And then from there, it will ask you which foreign country. So you should be able to answer your foreign country information as you go through. I have a question. Do Social Security benefits received by my daughter due to the loss of the husband count on the FAFSA? Where would that be filed? No. Non-taxable benefits like Social Security benefits or Let's see, what other non-taxable contributions you've made to your retirement programs, um, maybe tax-exempt interest. None of that counts as income for the purpose of the FAFSA, so it does not have to be disclosed. So you don't have to worry about that particular question. Okay, let's see. Where does the Florida prepay go? We've talked about this a couple of times, but remember the Florida prepay goes under the owner, not the beneficiary. So whoever owns the account is the one who would report the cash value of the Florida prepaid. That might be the parent if the parent is the owner. It's usually not the student because usually the student doesn't own the account. And if it's a grandparent that bought the Florida prepaid for their grandchild, then it doesn't have to be reported at all because it's not either the asset of the parent or the asset of the student. How about an I bond or CD? Kelsey, you've got that one. Thank you. Let's see. Now, a brokerage account is what you mean by an investment, right? Generally, yes, a brokerage account, but it could also be a money market account. It could be a second property. It could be all kinds of things. But yes, investments usually mean a liquid investment, although second property might not be so liquid, but an investment that isn't just cash or savings. It's some kind of investment account that is not specifically designated for retirement. So not a 401k, not a 403b, but some other kind of investment. Okay, let's see. So in filling out the 24-25 FAFSA, as they're applying summer in the high school completion status, since it says, what is your status at the beginning of the year? What do I answer? So that's a great question. Just to be clear, you're going to answer in that situation that I will be a graduate because otherwise you're not going to be eligible for aid. So you want to make sure in that situation to note that and to let the college know. The college will know that, but still you want to make sure the college knows. Okay, let's see. I think what we're going to do, I know that there are still some questions out there. It looks like people are answering them. I think what we'll do is take a couple more questions and then we will end the evening a little bit early. Lisa says we have a Florida prepaid 2+2 plan, not a 529 plan. Do we need to report that? Yes, the Florida prepaid 2+2 is a 529 plan. It's the same thing. It's just that Florida brands theirs specifically as Florida prepaid. So that is an investment of the owner, and that would have to be reported as the owner's investment. Okay, let's see. What if the child support you receive is for more than one student? That is a great question. Thank you for asking that one. So I want to go back and pull the parent information and look specifically at what the parent information says. So again, the parent information specifically reads total amount of child support for all students. So it's not just the student that you are reporting on, it's any student who is receiving, who for whom you are receiving child support, you would include the total amount. You certainly can, again, be in touch with the college and ask for an appeal if that child support's going away or if it's not going to be included in future, but that would be a college by college determination. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to stop here. I want to say thank you to all of you for your attention. I hope we got to most of your questions this evening. I hope you found tonight's session helpful and that you were able to complete your FAFSA, or if you haven't finished your FAFSA, that you have a chance to do it shortly in the near term. It's our pleasure at Bridge to Life. I'm speaking on behalf of Bridge to Life and the Broward Educational Foundation to provide the support. We think it's really important to help students achieve their dreams of a college diploma or an opportunity to attend post-secondary education. So it's our pleasure to have spent the time with you this evening. I want to again thank very much my friends who were on the background here providing answers to questions as we went. And I hope you enjoyed this evening. Remember, you can feel free to log back in and watch the recording at a later date. And as we started out with some music, I'm going to end us with some music as well. Again, thank you for spending some time with us this evening and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much. Take good care.
You're scared